During this summer's Herpa Wings open door event, Herpa did kind of promise that the A319 and A320 in the blue ITA Airways livery are just around the corner, but for now we have to make do with yet another all-white ITA Airways aircraft model. And this time it's an A220, which we can take a closer look at thanks to the great prices of the FMB shop. And with that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we, as mentioned, will take a closer look at an Airbus A220-300 of ITA Airways. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the ITA Airways branding. Herpa's unlimited creativity has led to this absolute terrible box design with yet another cutout on the backside, but I mean, hey, at least it's a limited edition. And here she is, the Airbus A220-300 in the all-white, or perhaps we can call it Born to be Sustainable livery of ITA Airways. They do also have this livery on at least one A350 and maybe even more aircraft. Honestly speaking, I don't really know and don't really care, because I much rather would like to have had a blue ITA Airways aircraft model in front of me, but now we have this A220, and at least in this case it's correct because all A220s of ITA Airways are in this white livery. So, how has Herpa managed to do with this aircraft model? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is by taking a closer look at it, starting off with the tail section, where we on the vertical stabilizer have, well, nothing. Except on the top there we have the last two letters of the registration code. The full registration code we can then find on the fuselage, and towards the very tail of the aircraft we have a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust, but we also have a few printed details underneath that, which looks quite nice. And if we switch it all around, we can find on the top of the fuselage a set dome. Now Herpa has a tendency to add these rather too large, but in this case I actually think they are at least fairly close to the real thing, because on the A220 the set dome is actually also quite big. Now at the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage we then find the ITA Airways branding, and of course the most important thing here, the slogan, Born to be Sustainable, which I think is marketing speak for we were too lazy to add a real livery to this aircraft. And unfortunately, that's also all the printed details we will find here on the fuselage. Quite disappointing. So it's not just the airline that is lazy with their livery, it's also Herpa being lazy with their details, because they could have added a static port, or maybe some petro tubes, or a landing light, but no, they just left that away. So where are our additional details, Herpa Wings, that we are paying so much extra money for? So yeah, as mentioned, given that they saved a lot of money on the print here on the side of the fuselage, they could have added maybe some petro tubes around the cockpit section, but they also left that away. At least they did add the cockpit windows and the window wipers, and above that we find the last two letters of the registration code and the emergency hatch for the cockpit. But let's see what Herpa has managed to do with the engine nacelles. Now they have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage, but do have the silver leading edge printed on, as well as the ITA Airways branding. But, quite disappointingly, we have no safety markings here either. Again, a detail that Herpa should have added, but they didn't. At least the physical detailing of these engines is spotless, especially here from the front. Very, very nice. You can see the engine fan blades. Then on the fuselage, just above the wings, we find the emergency exit has been printed on, which leads us straight to the wings, which we should also take a closer look at for sure. Starting off with the top side, where we have the different flap slats and spoilers carved out rather nicely, and we have the markings for the emergency exit printed on. Also, the underside looks pretty alright with some nice physical detailing, and we also here find the full registration code of the aircraft once again. And then of course the A220 also has these lovely winglets. Even though they're in all white, Herpa has done a pretty decent job with them. The landing gear is the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all their A220s, so no big surprises here. A fairly decent looking main landing gear, a slightly oversized front landing gear, and as always missing printed details here as well. And then on the belly of the aircraft we also, no surprises, find a hole in the fuselage for a stand, which of course is not included with this aircraft model. It doesn't destroy any printed details, but it's still rather pointless. And then last but not least, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft and here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Airbus A220 in the Born to be Sustainable livery of ITA Airways in scale 1 to 500 from Herpa Wings. And what can we say about this aircraft model? The first thing I would like to highlight is the physical detailing of the aircraft model, which I think Herpa has done a fairly good job with. I mean, yes, Herpa has over the years had some issues with the A220 where the nose changed from model to model, but I think in this case it looks pretty much alright. And yes, the set dome looks very big, but the real aircraft does also have a really big set dome, so maybe they're not spot on, but they're close enough for my taste. When we then shift our attention over to the print, well, I mean, the print quality itself is perfectly fine. The few prints they have added, they have done so quite nicely. But that's also my main issue. There are so few of them. I mean, Herpa cannot be blamed for ITA's very lackluster livery, but to leave away so many of the by now standard details and that we are also paying a hefty price for, that's just not good enough. Now, of course, there are differences from aircraft type to aircraft type, and the A220 doesn't have as many at least visible details or static ports like, for example, an A320. But when you then have to add less, you could then add something else, like, for example, petotubes. And they didn't. But they also left away details that an A220 for sure has, like, for example, the safety markings on the engines. And why? This is by now a standard detail, and we are, as I said, paying a hefty price for it. And I'm sorry, I mean, I do like this aircraft model. If we look at it on its own, it's a nice little scale 500 model. But when we look at how stingy Herpa is with their details, and they leave away details that they have promised us as a standard, and then they want to charge 35 euros retail, I'm really very sorry, but there can only be one conclusion to this, and that's rip-off. So yeah, with this unfortunate conclusion, it is time to end today's episode. Now, if you have enjoyed it, then feel free to leave a like, and if you are new around here, you're always welcome to hit subscribe. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.